Speaker.
Pottle-Williams.
Mr. Speaker, all that last speaker proves by his contribution is that he can read. That's all he proves. He makes no valid points. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that one of the points that we made on this side of the House is that the government MPs did not take a call throughout that whole committee stage. You might not need to. However, you should be defending your bill. All the points that we raise, as the chairman of the select committee that originally saw the original bill, I am sure that the member Alfred Nuttall would have wanted to make a contribution. But no, they sit there and they throw the occasional lob, but they do nothing constructive. When the government has required us to sit in urgency to pass a bill that obviously doesn't require urgency, there has been no justification given to this House why urgency is required. None whatsoever. Mr. Speaker, we started the day debating the reason we were here for this particular bill, and it's really about a couple of phrases. The two phrases that are in contention: on the day which or on the day after. That's all this argument has been about for the whole of this. And we know that when we go back to the original clause 80BA in the Principal Act, it says on the day which. So we've been having an argument for the last, how many hours has it been, Honourable Ruth Dyson? Several hours. To say, actually, 17 years ago, it was right. It was implemented incorrectly for the last 18 and a half years. It's actually been implemented incorrectly. Simple argument, let's fix it. Let's go back to 1988 and say, you know what, all those people that missed out on that day, because of those two clauses, on the day which or on the day after, the people who actually got paid on the day after, you know what, we're going to restore that. We're not going to say, hey, we found this out in 2014 and that's the day from which we are going to actually fix this. No, we're going to go back and have a look at the whole shebang and correct it from the beginning. Because what has happened, because we have put that line in the sand and said we're going to go from May 2014, is that there are a whole lot of people who have missed out on this, and there have been a lot of discussion about the principles of natural justice. They have been excluded from this process because of it. The Minister said that to date they've received 8,500 claims, and the previous speaker seems to intimate that that's because of the work that the government and the ministry have done. Well, actually, that's not correct. It's because of the work that beneficiary advocates have done and the word of mouth that has gotten out there as beneficiaries have been able to claim and receive what they're entitled to, that people have started to claim this process. But from tomorrow, that stops for most of those people who should be included in this process, and that's frankly unfair and not good enough. So the government takes responsibility just from the date that the mistake comes to light, and not actually from the date of the original era, which was when the bill was drafted under urgency in 1988. We could have actually provided a little bit more fairness in this process if we'd looked at the SOPs submitted by Carmel Sepuloni and Jan Logie to actually extend the period, to give people an opportunity to review where they'd been, what they'd been doing, and potentially make a claim. And we know that there are sections of the working population who are going to be impacted more than others, and those are the seasonal workers. Those are workers who participate in school and education activities where their contracts cease at the end of term, and they're clearly not going to be able to engage in this process. This piece of legislation came to the House with no regulatory impact statement, with no clarity that the policy intent was actually met through any evidence. There was no cabinet papers to support it, and we have had to rely on the word of the Minister that the intent of the policy of the bill is actually that. And this side of the House has been working all evening to look through Hansard for evidence. We have had nothing from the other side of the House, nothing at all. This has been a really truncated process when it didn't need to be. We've had no external examination. We've had no official input whatsoever. It's a flimsy bill, it's been poorly drafted, and we will be coming back to the House probably in time to fix it. We have no idea how much this is going to cost us. There has been no financial examination of this bill whatsoever. No financial examination of the costs of this whatsoever. If there has been, this hasn't been presented to the House, nor has it been provided to members to debate. And that surely is not good enough when we are spending the precious time of the House to debate this bill. Surely we should know, and the people of New Zealand, the taxpayers of New Zealand particularly, should know what the fiscal implications of this bill are going to be. We have not had the opportunity to examine that. And Mr. Speaker, the resources of the government are vast. They should have been used to ensure that members of the public were well informed about the implications for them and the opportunities for them to actually make claims, and not leave it up to our beneficiary advocates. The Minister herself said that Kay Brereton had exhausted her electricity source trying to contact beneficiaries, and she applauded Kay Brereton for it. And I was absolutely astonished. Surely that is the job of the government to do that work when they have clearly made a mistake and they need to advise those that could benefit from that error being corrected. Surely it was the job of the government to do that. Mr. Speaker, this is the second of 3 bills that we will be passing through this House in urgency. Frankly, this one didn't need to come to the House under urgency. It could have gone through the normal process. There are bills on the order paper that are far more important and far more urgent that are languishing on the order paper. And there has been no sufficient justification from this government why it needed to happen now. Clearly, the bill has been rushed. Clearly, with the lack of evidence, the lack of regulatory impact statement, and the other information that should have come to the House for a full and thorough examination hasn't occurred. Mr. Speaker, there isn't much more to say. We've well traversed this bill in the House, and unfortunately, we won't be supporting it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I call Todd Muller.
Well, what a great privilege to be able to stand up